On the pet food side, my research group worked a lot on rendering fat, in particular beef tallow, white grease, and chicken render fat. And what we did initially, and with a succession of different studies, was to understand if foodborne pathogen, specifically Salmonella, was able to survive in this environment with different moisture level and at different temperature.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pet Food Science Podcast, where I seek to discuss current research and how it may apply to innovation and solutions in the pet food industry. I am your host, Julia Pezzali, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with Dr. Valentina Trinetta about pet food and foodborne pathogen risks. Welcome, Dr. Trinetta, to our podcast.
Thank you for inviting me.
No problem. And before we talk a little bit more about food safety and within the pet food industry, can you tell our audience a little bit about your background? What kind of research do you do and how you end up in your current position today?
Yeah, sure. So I started my position at Kansas State University 9 years ago. But before joining academia, I was working for Ecolab R&D. So my background is strong in cleaning and sanitation strategies. And I'm bringing this knowledge with me at K-State. So the majority of research that I'm doing is trying to understand why pathogen persist and survive in processing environment for human food and animal food, and trying to understand which strategies of cleaning, sanitation, disinfection can be effective, and if they are not effective, what's happening to the ecology and physiology of bacteria.
Awesome. So you have done research in the human food side and animal feed and pet food as well, correct?
Yes.
On the pet food side specifically, even on the feed side, which can be really applicable on the plant scenario, what are some research topics within pet food and feed that you're investigating now or have done in the past?
Yeah, so on the pet food side, my research group worked a lot on rendering fat, in particular beef tallow, white grease, and chicken render fat. And what we did initially, and with a succession of different studies, was to understand if foodborne pathogen, specifically Salmonella, was able to survive in this environment with different moisture level and at different temperature, because until a couple of years ago was not very well understood how and if a bacteria could survive and or proliferate in this type of environment, such as rendering fat. So what we saw is that even a small droplet of water will allow Salmonella to survive. They do not replicate, but they are there. And at the correct condition of temperature and humidity, they will get back and be able to survive and eventually contaminate the product. That's kind of a little bit the explanation of some type of recall and outbreak that happen in the pet food industry, where before we didn't really understand how that could happen. The fact that we saw the survivability of Salmonella in such harsh environment is an explanation of this outbreak. What we did after this initial study, where we investigate the different type of fat, we say, is this realistic of what's happening during transportation? And so we did a study where we work with the industry to try to understand if currently they are using the correct or most effective strategy to clean transportation tanker from the rendering facility to the pet food facility where they will make their product. And the stakeholders were very responsive and very collaborative. And I can tell you that even if the sample size that we were able to work with is relatively limited, it's still a good information and at least a representation of what's happening in the industry. And I can tell you that the facility where cleaning and sanitation are applied to transportation tank really take out the risk of contamination, in the sense that we had a check pre and after cleaning and sanitation, and if there were any high level of indicator bacteria after the procedure that they are done at this washing facility, the surfaces were coming back clean. What we did realize is that probably there should be a better internal communication within the industry, making sure that these transportation tanker might not sit for long at this washing facility, because the increased amount of time that these tankers sit and are waiting their turn to be washed, you increase the possibility to biofilm formation, and that those type of community of bacteria are more difficult to get rid of as compared to fresh contaminants. So that's kind of one of the recommendations that we did after this study.
No, very, very interesting. And for our audience who may not have a background, many times when they produce kibble, that we add the fat source after the kill step, so during rubbing process. So if the fat is contaminated with some pathogen, it could lead to recalls and food safety concerns for people, animals. And I will get some questions about those very interesting studies, and some very basic one. It's water activities is one of the factors that may support bacterial growth. And if someone thinks about fat, they may say, oh, there's not much water in there, so why they should be concerned about fat? Is that water coming from those the cleaning process from those tanks, the transport, where that fat's coming, the water, residual water is coming, that may, I am assuming that is the one that may be contaminated with the pathogenic bacteria.
During this washing step, there is a dry step as well. So the industry recognized the fact that in giving water to bacteria is increasing the possibility to make it work, to make it proliferate. So therefore, there is a drying step. But since these are cleaning in place, so you don't have the possibility to open the equipment, there might be still some droplet. And so that was the case of the previous study. They say even if the moisture level is low, the bacteria that are surviving the killing step after rendering, that is a validated process too, might stay there, do not proliferate, but wait the correct situation to survive and multiply. So that's a risky one. So particular attention to that. Another one is temperature. And that's why we made the recommendation of, be careful of not letting the tankers sit for long, because during cold times, that's not a problem. Bacteria are susceptible to low temperature, the majority of them, and so they will not grow. But at higher temperature during spring, during summer, if you leave the tanker under sun or in the facility, and we did this study where we tested 48 degrees Celsius and 76 degrees Celsius, and you could see that at optimal temperature that are 48, they still were able to survive. So again, if you can, don't leave your tanker there for long, so you don't give possibility to bacteria to proliferate. And again, I do want to underline and highlight that where the procedure of cleaning and disinfection were done properly, we didn't find any contaminant. So that was the good news.
Okay, no, that's awesome. And you mentioned as well that you look at three different fat sources. Were any difference between those fat sources in the outcomes that were evaluated?
I can tell you from our results, it seems that rendered chicken fat is the one that supported the best the growth if there is a contaminant as compared to the grease and the tallow. I'm not the best person. Actually, wait. We did make a like liposomic analysis, so lipid analysis of the physical and chemical property. And so we saw that in the chicken fat, there were some compound that were supporting better than the other two type of fat, the growth of Salmonella. But I'm not probably the correct person to give you detail of the property of the material to tell you why exactly they were surviving best.
Interesting. Yeah.
But we saw some difference with chicken fat being the one that favored the growth.
No, that's good to know because depending on our fatty acid profile, then you may see differences in survival of or growth potential on that specific fat source. And you mentioned as well about if you have a proper cleaning and sanitation procedure, you may not. That's not going to be an issue. Maybe you share a little bit of our audience what would be a proper sanitation procedure in those cases.
Yes. So when talking with this washing facility, at the moment is the industry that is kind of guiding themselves to understand which type of cleaning and sanitizing procedure are best. And so I would say I was super impressed because they decide to adopt or as example a document that is used for cleaning and sanitation of a juice tanker.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an industry that knows very well what it's doing because of so many outbreaks that happened in the past. And so this facility that we went to visit decide to work out from, there is a document that is called the that is written by the Juice Product Association that assists in maintaining the sanitation and safety of the juice. And so what this facility that we visit are doing is they do have a degreasing step. Okay, and then they do use a cleaner that usually can be a detergent or an alkaline cleaner, and then they will do a rinsing step before adding a disinfectant or sanitizer. These disinfectant and sanitizer are approved they are food grade, of course. what we also observed that was positive is that after the application of the sanitizer, there was also a hot water rinse. And this helped both, again, to potentially eliminate any kind of bacteria still surviving, but also residual from the sanitizer. So, they are working, they're validated, they're just taken from an industry that had experience and learned from the mistakes. So I think was a smart move for the tanker and washing facility, take SOP already developed by the Juice Association. And so kudos to the people that put that work together, because when we went there, the facility were outstanding.
That's awesome, and it's a great example about how we can learn for other industries and get out of our bubble, because many of the problems we may be facing now, other people or the industry have been facing before and already have a solution, or at least some steps ahead that we can start applying and learning from them. So that's a very good example.
Yeah.
Based on your work with the industry on those studies, and want to highlight that is very impressive and important that we did this work with the industry visiting real facilities, because many challenges that we face is scaling up and then bringing that lab results to the real scenario, and both are really important. But it's really impressive that this work was done with the industry and with their support and making sure they are part of the process to deliver real solutions for them. But based on this work and previous work that you have done as well, what do you think is the most concerning pathogen for the pet food industry?
So I am a bacteriologist, so the viral world is all another piece of problem, I feel like. But from the bacteria point of view, I think Salmonella and Listeria represent the most concerning pathogen also for the pet food industry. Salmonella, because this bacteria is able to survive in dry processing environment. And so if, as we demonstrate, there is the survival of even one cell of Salmonella in the fat, and then is going into the pet food plant processing facility that is can be a dry facility, we do have the risk. So Salmonella, again, able to grow at low moisture environment, be able to support different level of temperature from low to high. So is a smart bacteria that can show up anytime. And I add also Listeria, because I know that a lot of time consumer give raw pet food to their pet, and so that's the risk on minimally processed food can contain, like for human, can contain Listeria, and is a concern and is a risk for animal as well. This pathogen not always will be pathogenic for the animal. So maybe a Salmonella is a good example. Maybe you will not see that your pet, your dog, is vomiting or has episode of diarrhea, even if is a carrier of Salmonella. But if you start handling properly the pet food, and you are immunocompromised, or in that moment you are susceptible, even if your dog or cat are not showing sign of Salmonella or Listeria, you are very likely potentially be able to take that pathogen at that point is going to be pathogenic for human. There are very specific serotype of Salmonella that are pathogenic for animal, and FDA is strictly checking on them. But there is the difficulty from what the food for animal is carrying, making sure there are no human pathogen or no pathogen that are risky for humans. So there is a both risk, in my opinion. So we need to be careful for the pet. We need to be careful for the owner as well.
Yeah, no, very good point. And becomes the pet food is it becomes a public safety, part of a public safety measure and concern that we need to address too.
So one of the study that we tried to do before in feed mill where they were producing animal food for pig was trying to understand, are we finding in this facility or in this final product some serovar, some strain that are not pathogenic for animal, and so the animal will ingest and will not show any sign of sickness, but are those strain pathogenic for human? And I can tell you, yes, there were plenty of clinical strain. Now, that doesn't mean it's gonna survive from the feed mill to the end product, but is implying a risk.
Yeah, no, very, very good point again.
Yeah, I like what you say. I feel like sometimes we do the mistake of food for animal or pet is in a silos as compared to the food for human. No, I think there is plenty of picture that kind of put together the fact that everything now is connected. Because of global food system, we can get ingredient everywhere in the world, and I can tell you that in this facility that we visit, washing facility, not only animal food tanker were washed, also human food tanker were washed. So we are all interconnected. I wouldn't look at as a silos.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, many of those strains are going to be humans are going to be more successful, and kids and elderly people they're even more. And I don't know who is listening has a small kid, but those toddlers they sometimes like to try, dog food.
Yes, that's
So
true.
it's become even it's the pets are there, they're part of the family, and uh, their food is exposed to people that are more successful as well. So it becomes a very important point to be considered too.
It's time for our famous three.
Tired of navigating the pet food industry alone? The Pet Food Inner Circle brings together the brightest minds in pet nutrition, where seasoned professionals share real insights and tackle the challenges that matter most. When you need answers, industry leaders are just a conversation away. Ready to join the circle? Visit petfoodinnercircle.com and connect with your peers today.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Trinetta, for joining us today. It was really good to learn about your studies and how you work closely with the industry to really find solutions that are going to be applied to improve the work that they are doing. But before I let you go, I'd like to ask some other questions, not related specifically with food safety. One is, but the other one is not. And we have people who listen to our podcast that are students and people about to graduate who are hoping to join the industry force soon. And as you work in the industry as well, do you have any suggestion of what students or what people need to prepare to as their first job, not on the not scientific knowledge, but maybe some people skills, what some traits do you think is important for them to develop during their program?
Two main skills: be curious and learn how to listen. because you should have a good filter and listening and learning. So
Yeah.
that's sometimes not all student or not all younger worker know how to listen. They kind of want to be proactive. Proactive is good, so curiosity is good, but also sometimes step back and listen. So that's one of my suggestions.
Yeah, I agree. And the last one is whoever is not a food safety expert, do you have any resources for them if they want to start learning more about food safety, applied or not for pet food, where they should start? Any resource that you recommend?
Yeah, there is an app that is called Food Safety News. And I have it, and every day there are like information, recall, outbreak on human food and animal food. So and also in general, information about food safety. So that's, I think, is for public knowledge, is not strictly scientific, but there are links to the scientific paper if you want to go deeper. Otherwise, is a general information to the public, and is a good place to start.
Yeah, no, I like that because I think creating awareness and understanding where we are today is a very good place to start and to see where you should focus more on learning. Awesome. Thank you very much, Dr. Trinetta. I hope you enjoy your time here with us, and I hope you come back for next podcast to share more about your research and any thoughts on pet food safety, which is a very, very important topic for our industry and for the safety of, not only pets, but also humans too. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.